So so basically, I think the question was views on demographics as they impact hydrocarbon use around the world. So maybe I'll let you tackle that question.
Sure. Sure. So, the oil market, oil prices have really been supported by two things. One is the growth from the emerging markets such as China, India, Brazil, and their demand for crude oil and the ability of supply to be able to keep up with that. But one of the things that we think could really bring to the forefront over the next several years here is the aging demographics in the developed countries such as the United States, Western Europe, and Japan. And as you mature or grow older, you consume less oil, and these three areas account for 40% of global oil demand. And one of the surprises to the market over the next several years here will be actually declining demand from these regions here as the demographic shift from those areas actually age.
Okay, so I think earlier in the when we were in the panel, you mentioned sort of retirees driving less, and that trend having been around for at least 50 years now. How do you see that maybe in a bit more detail playing out? And one of the questions that you received was around, is there enough growth coming from the developing countries to balance that, or maybe not?
Yeah, I think near term, you are still going to experience decent or strong growth from the developing economies that you see here. But one of the challenges will be the acceleration of that growth that you have within the region here, such as, China and India. A lot of these economies are still export driven and relying on countries like the US and Western Europe in terms of consumption. And until you see meaningful inroads in the middle classes of those areas here, you'll still continue to see growth there, but not to maybe the acceleration where expectations were just a couple years ago in terms of demand for oil growth.
Okay, I think we had a question from the audience. If maybe someone could pass it on to us so we can address it. Just doing some translation here. So.
Do you think Colombia is ready for the newest technologies in drilling for oil, such as draining with gravity?
Interesting question. So, do I think Colombia is ready for new technologies? Well, if you look at Colombia over the last decade, you've seen a fair amount of technologies that were new to Colombia get introduced. SAGD, so steam-assisted gravity drainage, not being one of them at this point, but you've seen new drilling techniques, a lot of new Canadian drilling rigs come down that weren't here 10 years ago. So I think Colombia's oil industry has definitely adapted very well to learning from the experience of other oil industries out there, such as Canada and the US and Europe. What will the next 10 years bring? We've got Pacific Rubiales right now as we speak. They're piloting what I would argue is even more cutting-edge technology than steam-assisted gravity drainage, which is what we see in Canada and the oil sands. They're actually piloting what they call the STAR technology, so it's a bit of a fire flood. So you're using heat to improve recovery rates. If you look at countries such as Canada, where we have a lot of heavy oil, that technology is also at the pilot stage. So I would argue that the Colombian oil and gas companies are not only ready for new technology, but actually on the cutting edge of pioneering that technology themselves in certain instances.
Well, thank you so much again for your time.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.